Hi, my name's Pat Evans. I'm a reporter with the Grand Rapids Business Journal. One of my beats is beer, so why not start off with a live chat with a couple of the best brewers in town, Chris and Jason Spalding. We're here at Brewery Vivant, and we're going to take your questions and some questions that I came up with, and hopefully answer them all. Here we go.
All right. Hello, all you thousands of people out there.
All right, so we'll start off real easy with Jason. You've been in the brewing industry a long time, relatively.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in the brewing?
And long enough, my beard is gray now. But originally, back in mid to late '90s, there weren't that many breweries in Michigan. I was part of New Holland Brewery when we opened there, and that was 1997, and I think we had the 15th license in Michigan, and now there's over 120. So between brew pubs, breweries, and all that, it's really come a long ways. So I think only in the last really 5 to 10 years has craft beer really taken off, and now we're kind of seeing that in all the breweries that are opening. There's just a lot of momentum going. But back in when Founder started, when New Holland started, there just really wasn't that much around. We'd spend a lot of our time is explaining to people this is what a pale ale is, or this is what amber ale is, and now fast forward to where we are today. Now our brewery, we specialize in Belgian and French inspired beers. That never could have happened back then. So people's tastes have really come a long ways and allowed us to really follow our passion. So I don't know, it's been fun.
Chris, how did you get roped into it? You weren't always a brewer, into brewing.
I was not. I got roped into it just because craft beer is so good. So I drank enough that eventually Jason had to ask me out when he was with New Holland, and we ended up married. But as far as getting into it with Vivant specifically, we knew that we have great complementary skills that are very different from each other, and we would make good business partners. And when he determined that beer was the only thing he wanted to do, we said, all right, let's do it together, and here we are. It's been working 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. It's awesome.
Okay.
My advice too for anyone, find a good girl that likes beer and marry her.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right, so we do have a question already. Where's the beer? We were just talking about that too.
Oh, in our hands.
Yeah,
right now,
probably,
I know.
It might be a little early. Yeah, maybe. Or...
I'm pregnant too, so I think
I
don't
thought
think that
about
would
it.
go over very well.
It's not quite noon yet, but close.
Okay. You were looking at several different locations for Brewery Vivant. Was it going to be Brewery Vivant if you weren't in this location?
Yeah, we had our concept pretty nailed down with the types of beers we wanted to brew. We were still kicking the name around. We hadn't quite named it until until everything came together. But we were looking for a location for the brewery, and when everywhere, Ann Arbor was a thought for a long time. We actually moved to Ann Arbor to do it there. It ended up not working out, and so we looked at the Traverse City area, and had a great location, made some great friends up there that we're still friends today. But then when this spot became available, it just became so obvious that this was the right home for it. Our families are here in West Michigan, and it just made a lot of sense. Really, to do a Belgian-inspired brewery, and you walk into a building like this, and it already looks like a monastery. It was kind of, a no-brainer. So we just had to do it.
Yeah, it is a little odd. You've already kind of touched on it, but the Belgian and French beers.
Yeah.
How weird is it to do when not a lot of American craft breweries are doing it? I know there's a couple, but.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit on the leading edge of that. We're starting to see more like farmhouse beers being made, and I always follow that kind of thing. And out, I see it happening out in like the West Coast and Oregon. There's a lot of breweries doing these styles of beer, which makes me think that we're a little bit ahead of the curve on it. But I really find they're interesting, and it's just beers that we're passionate about. We had an opportunity to go over, spend some time in Belgium and northern France, met some brewers, had some terrific beers. It was really inspiring for us, and there's just such a, um, you know, not to go off on a deep end too much, but American craft beer seems to be so focused on hops right now that it's kind of fun for us. Ours is really more yeast forward, which isn't as exciting as maybe hops sound, but you can get a lot of interesting flavors by uh, getting interesting yeast in, letting them do their thing. And we're learning every day how how our yeast work and just letting them develop those flavors. And I think of course we can do hoppy beers and things like that, but we can really do some interesting things in that kind of farmhouse realm. So.
Okay. How do you think your beers compare to the actual French and Belgian beers?
They're also unique. Like, that's part of what we like so much about the French and Belgian scene. There is these tiny breweries that made very different types of beers, and it would be unique from one brewery to the next.
Yeah.
We also really like the integration that they had within their communities, where the brewer was not just a brewer, but he was also, we joke, but he was also sometimes the mayor or the head of the tourism guild, or whatever it may be. And that was something that was important to us too, is having that community involvement. So the styles of beers fit what we wanted to do, and then the actual persona of these breweries and their involvement in their neighborhoods was pretty awesome too.
Yeah, we had great beers over there, but our goal isn't to try to make exactly what we had, but what we liked was just the approach that they had. Very artistic. They didn't
Very local.
Very local. Yeah, they wouldn't brew a specific style. Like you'd ask them what kind of beer is this, and they just say, do you like it or do you not like it?
Yeah.
And just try to value the beer on the beer itself, and not try to Americans always want to categorize and rank, and this one's above this one. That's just the way Americans are. But over there, it's different. They just if you like the beer, you like it. If you don't like it.
And that's why I think too, when we talk about being Belgian and French inspired, the word inspired is really important to use in that, because we aren't trying to replicate anything. We are inspired by the tendencies that they have to use local ingredients and do things creatively and on a whim, and that's what's so awesome to us. Luckily, they have really fantastic yeast that we can use. But outside of that, I think our brewers get a lot of ability to do what they think is best for that beer.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the American way. You talk about hops, and now we're kind of seeing the bourbon barrel stuff get real popular too. But why is it so hop based in America?
Hops are so good.
Yeah, I mean, everyone loves a hoppy beer. Even everyone I know. I mean, if you do a beer well, it's just good. And I mean, I think a little bit to answer that question, a little bit is just craft beer is still fairly new to people. So I think it's kind of a revolt against the common kind of light fizzy lager. You go on the other side of that, you get these extreme flavors out of these hops, and I think that people are just craving anything to distance itself from what's being crammed down our throat commercially for so long. And I think that's part of that hop craze.
I wonder too if part of it is, you think if most of the hops in the U.S. are grown in the Pacific Northwest, and that's where a lot of the great beer, started and has been around for a long time, so that there could be some natural tendency there too, as far as they could grow these awesome hops, and they started using them, and the palate across the country has kind of evolved along with that.
And there was a time, Sierra Nevada was considered very hoppy beer, and now fast forward to today, and that's kind of like your starting point for a pale ale.
True. Okay.
Look at all those questions.
All right, we got some questions
Awesome.
coming in.
Well, they're mostly the ones I'm asking, I guess. But somebody posted they fell in love with the Russian River.
Adam G.
So did
wine
I,
barrel.
Adam.
So they're asking, can we see that in the future?
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's something that we definitely want to do more of, is more sours, and our brewers actually do a really good job already. We'll use the bourbon barrels for aging, and then we let those, as long as the barrel stays good for us, we let the beers naturally sour in them. So we have one that's called Angelina. That was literally the first bourbon barrel we used 2 years ago. That's still around, and the bourbon flavor's out of it, but the souring is definitely there. We've experimented with some wine barrels and some cognac as well, and I think we'll just continue to do more of that. But Consecration from Russian River is totally one of my absolute favorite beers ever.
Yeah, one thing with this barrel aging too, like as time goes on, we're letting these barrels. There's little microflora in each barrel, and we actually name each barrel with a woman's name, and we keep track of it. And as Chris mentioned, Angelina was one of our very first barrels, and that's still around, and that's just putting out great beer. So that one, we keep refilling it, keep topping it off, and it keeps giving us great sour beer. We've had other beers that other barrels that the beer's not so good, and we kind of just let that one expire and get rid of it. But I think as we develop more of this kind of microflora, we're going to do more and more of it. But it's definitely our brewers. That's what they get most excited about. So I think we'll see more and more of that. And we do have one batch of beer in barrels right now that we hope to actually put in cans and get out there yet this year, 2013. So we're tasting it. It's pretty sour. We want to let it age a little bit more. That's one of those things that we want to have a timetable. It's done when it's done. When Jacob, our brewer, likes the way it's tasting, then we'll get it rolling. So
Great. Craig Rich has asked about the hop growing industry and if it's going to be a significant player in Michigan.
I sure hope so.
there's no reason it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Our climate is actually perfect for growing hops, especially up there in that Traverse City area. It's what you can grow them anywhere in Michigan. Climate-wise, we're very similar to like Bavaria in Germany, and obviously they grow a lot of hops there. So I think if we foster it a little bit, there's definitely obviously the breweries are here that could use them. Having a local source for ingredients is important to all of us. So I think, if we fast forward 10 years, I think there'll be significant hop farms. I think the one thing we're missing is like, all these hops are patented strains. Like right now, the things that are hot are Citra, Amarillo, Simcoe, things like that. Like we need like some sort of Michigan patented, so maybe we need the people at Michigan State to kind of work on crossing something to give us like a really super hop.
Yeah, I know the extension's really involved.
Yeah. That's my challenge to you guys at Michigan State.
Yeah.
Come up with an awesome high alpha hop, and I think that would really take off.
Well, I was talking to Barry Johnson the other day, and he was talking about how there's a lot of wild hops from when the Germans came over. So that could be cool if they can find one like that. That would be the Michigan.
That would be great.
I think one other quick thing to add with hops too is, all the breweries around here would love to use more Michigan hops. Like we actually couldn't get what we wanted to last year just because there's such a high demand for them. So I know there's a lot of talk of hop co-ops, whether it's a grower or a processor. So the more that those things happen and can kind of bring hops together, so we just have one purchasing thing that's testing the chemistry of them to make sure they have the right, alphas and all of those kind of things, then it'll be even better for all the breweries.
Yeah, and I think the hop farmers are getting smarter because breweries can't just throw anything in to their brew. You need to kind of know what the alpha acids are. They need to be dried to a certain level. So I think that's where these co-op processing plants could really elevate the whole thing. So
bring it on.
We got another question. The local beer scene is such a big deal right now. From an insider's perspective, what do you see the next 2, 5, and 10 years looking like in GR Brewers?
More breweries.
Well, there's some guys meeting down in our pub yesterday. They're going to start a brew pub here in Grand Rapids, and there's a lot of kind of breweries in the works right now. But the question always comes up is, are we reaching like a point where we can't have any more breweries? But I don't really think that we're there yet. You look at places like Portland. They're huge meccas. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. And there's literally like a brewery in every corner. Like just in Portland itself, I think there's 120 breweries just in the city.
That's crazy.
But I think we're going to see more and more breweries open. And I always think if there's a brew pub in a neighborhood that doesn't that has the need, or there isn't one already, or whatever it might be, I think there's always room for another brew pub if it fits the neighborhood. Where I think the battleground is going to be is there's only so much shelf space at supermarkets, at on tap at other bars and restaurants that you need to be for a microbrewery to make your business go. There's only so much room for those things, and I think that will get more and more competitive. But I think brew pubs, no problem. If people have a plan along those lines that fits the neighborhood, we're going to see a lot of growth there. But I do see a lot of beer tourism happening in Grand Rapids already, and I think that's going to continue, and that's just going to foster the growth. And we really look at it as craft brewers as a whole, that it's really drawing more attention to the category itself, and so we really don't look at each other as competing. So I think it's going to get healthier, stronger. There may be some breweries that open that close, but it's still a startup business. It's still difficult. I think statistically, it's just going to happen. But I don't think it's indicative of the industry. I think there's room to grow, and I think we'll get stronger.
And I think like when you guys had New Holland, it started. There's kind of a expansion in the Michigan brewery scene at that point. A growing one, and then there was an actual contraction, like all industries. When a lot of people think, oh, it'd be so awesome to own a brewery and make beer for a living, and they don't realize, to his point, what they were getting into. That it's totally a business that you still have to run, and even if it's the thing you care most about in life, or one of the things, that doesn't guarantee that it's going to succeed. So I think there will be more and more breweries opening, but I think there will be a contraction, at least within the 10-year mark, if not sooner. The 5-year.
The one thing,
kind of get the people that don't have the business head for it will naturally move on to other things.
Yeah, I mean, there's momentum right now, and it when people see what they consider to be a hot market, people get into it that don't have, they don't know what they're getting themselves into, or they don't have the business experience. That's always going to be a problem. But
so I think that question too, like trends and like what styles of beers we see going out there, and I think Belgian and French styles, like we're doing, are becoming trendier.
Yeah. And the barrel aging.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the new front right now.
I'm not sure what's after that though.
I think it just continues to evolve. People just get more interested.
Beer cocktails.
Yeah, I have seen that, but I'm not really into that.
Beer and food pairing. And that's
I've seen those are starting to
too.
take off. But and two, once you get a taste for beer or craft beer, it's kind of like don't go back. Really.
Yeah. Well, and we have a strong home brewing community, which I think fosters craft brewery success as well. And you get a bunch of homebrewers in here, they always want you to push the limits on everything too. So I think it kind of makes you continue to experiment. And really, I mean, our brewers have literally books of beers that they still want to make. So we're going to continue to explore, and if the beer's good, we're going to make it.
Okay. Just a reminder for those watching live, you can post comments at the bottom for the Spaldings. Scott Sommerfeld just asked, Brewery Vivant is known for great food. Is food a big driver for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that was really important to us, even in this concept, that when we were in Belgium and France, magically everything we ate and we were served just happened to go fabulously with a beer, and it was kind of by accident there. But it's so ingrained in their culture that I think it's just a part of who they are. So they don't even think about it. They just, here's what they select to eat tonight, and then they just go down and they pick a beer out of the cellar, and wow, it's fabulous. And just simple things too. Like the really high quality cheeses, pâtés, and good bread, and dried meats, and wild game, and everything just happened to go fabulously with beer. And that's something we definitely are passionate about here, and we try to do with our pub here, is kind of surprise people a little bit with the menu, but we have some real, again, just like our beer, it's Belgian and French inspired, maybe with our own twists. But like our duck confit nachos, a classic thing like duck confit, but in kind of our own take on that. You wouldn't get duck confit nachos in Belgium, but it's kind of fun for us to kind of explore those things. So we're kind of do the same thing with beer as we do with the food, but definitely very important to us.
Okay, we got another question. There's a bill at the Senate level right now.
Right.
What are the potential state law changes, and how would that affect the beer industry?
Me run with that one.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, the perception is, the way liquor laws work, small breweries have been, there's strong feelings that there's been a little bit of a unfairness in the law. When we sign contracts with distributors, it's literally a lifetime contract. If you want to get out of that contract, it's very difficult to do. And I think for craft brewers, that's always been the thing that's always been tough for us to swallow. So from that standpoint, there's some changes that would give some framework that if you needed to change distributors for whatever reason, you could do that. The law goes on and on into other types of things, and I think if you talk to me, you talk to founders, you talk to a brew pub that's just starting up, we've all got our own opinions on everything that's in there.
Yeah.
But in the end, not everyone's going to be happy. And it's still, for us, it's a partnership with our distributors. In some of these laws, could put some of those things at odds, but for us, we look at our distributors as partners, and it has to go both ways for it to work, and we have some really good relationships with our distributors, so we don't want to have laws that hurt that relationship at all. So for us, some of those changes, once you make them, they could split off into different things, but in the end, distributors aren't going to be totally happy, brewers aren't going to be totally happy, but in the end, I think it'll be just fine.
Okay. You guys have talked a lot about your community, and you guys are very sustainably sound, obviously. But it's a lot more than just the surface level that we're sustainable. So tell us a little bit more about your philosophy. I know personally, I think it's very interesting in that it's a whole community thing.
And today is a magical day. Not only are we doing this interview, but I just posted our sustainability report for 2012. So anyone who's interested in knowing the details of what our program is and how we're doing towards our goals and all of that, we have it all captured right in there on our sustainability page at the website. But anyway, I had to put a plug in for that.
That is one of those things that we do that not a lot of people do. It's where we hold ourselves accountable, the things that we track. So anyone interested in looking at that, it's there for you. So,
but we think as a business in a community, we rely so much on the community to support us and to make us profitable and sustainable from a financial perspective, that we think it's only right to give back to that community in as many ways as we can, within our realms. So we look at, what is our environmental footprint, and we have a number of goals attached to that. We also look at, what kind of a neighbor are we from more of a social aspect, and how can we be a better neighbor and encourage other people to do good things and support good causes and all of that. So we've done a lot with, trying to think, aligning our business with our personal stuff, but also with what makes sense from a charitable perspective. We do a lot with the different hunger organizations in the area, just because naturally we serve a lot of food, and that seems like a good fit for us. So all those things, though, I think are just so important if you want to be a good member of your community and give back to those who make you survive, really.
Yeah, so something that we set very purposefully forward to do in our, when we started the business, is we wanted to have a lot of thought put into those types of things, and now we're just trying to follow through on those and but it makes us, as business owners, makes us happy to be part of the community, and
Very
Yeah.
satisfying.
yeah, it creates a good vibe here in the brewery too, because we try to hire people that have those similar values.
It's something we just did an employee survey, but it's open still. But one of the questions I had in there was, how do you care about our sustainability program? And luckily, no one said I don't care about it. But almost everybody said I take sustainability more seriously in my personal life from working at Vivant, which is so cool. Like, that's such an awesome thing to be able to impact people, not just when they're on the job, but when they go, back into their personal lives and make differences there too.
We should mention too, on St. Patrick's Day, Chris is going to
Yes.
do a special kind of environmental, sustainable tour of the brewery and kind of go in details of those reports. There's only room for 35 people, but if you want to sign up, you can email her at Chris at Brewery Vivant. You can sign up. There's a $10 cost. That $10 is going to go to buy trees for the East Hills neighborhood, and but you also get beer samples and things like that along the way. So,
that moves great into my next question about the neighborhood. You, Brewery Vivant, and like Essence Restaurants and Murray Catrieb's and all those, they've been huge in the redevelopment of this area. How important is it that more neighborhoods kind of take this feel and work together to do things?
I always think that when I travel to places, I like to seek out like the neighborhood places. If you really want like the flavor of a city or whatever, I think if you find where the locals go, that's when you really see what the community's all about. That's what makes it vibrant. And so I always try to seek those things out, rather than places out in strip malls and out on highways where you get more of those corporate restaurants and things like that. I think if you take a little time and seek out the neighborhoods, that's where you really get interesting things, and that obviously what we wanted to do here in this neighborhood already had some good momentum started, and I think we helped obviously contribute to that. But we're really happy. It's all owner-operated businesses that are up and down our neighborhood here, and it makes a big difference for us as business owners when we can walk in and talk to other business owners that are also working, rather than being owned corporate somewhere. So I mean, I think that's huge for us.
Okay.
I think it's cool too. Another thing that we're doing right now with the Greenwell is through the mygrcitypoints.com program, you can donate your points to a park, and then whichever 3 parks get the most points are going to get a makeover at different levels. And we were checking that out. We donated our points to Cherry Park, and it's like maybe 6th on the list as far as who had the most. So us and Greenwell teamed up and said, well, let's offer incentives to people. So sort of a bribe, but I think it's kosher. If you donate your points to Cherry Park, you can get an incentive from one of our businesses, which is so awesome that we have a neighbor business, that a lot of people probably think we don't like each other because we're competitors or whatever. And just like the brewing industry, when you're in a neighborhood like this, you really help each other and you do things together. And I love that we're doing that with the Greenwell, and that hopefully, Cherry Park, which is a block down the street and somewhere where tons of the neighborhood residents go, maybe this little thing will at least get us 2nd or 3rd place and get a makeover for the park. And as a business, if we can help that, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, just to back up just a second too, when we recycle here in Grand Rapids, there's a program that you get points and they accumulate, and you can redeem those for different things. And so we're just trying to drive people to use those points and point them to this park, and then we can get funds to set that up. So if people aren't familiar with I don't know who's watching this, but people may or may not know about that.
mygrcitypoints.com.
All right, so we got a couple more user questions, and I have another one that I'd like to
Okay.
ask. So we'll finish wrapping up. But if you have any more questions, just post at the bottom of the page. So we've got one asking, there's so many wonderful beers out there. I understand it's hard to choose. But what are each of your favorite beers? Your brewery and others.
Someone had to ask.
Of course.
That's probably everyone always likes to ask brewers what their favorite beer is, and like my favorite answer that I'll give to John Haggerty, who is the brewer at New Holland, is what he'd always say is it's the beer in front of me.
Yeah.
That's his favorite beer. But brewers all have, like literally, and Chris would probably have a similar response. But I mean, for us, like my favorite beer, it all depends. What am I in the mood for? What am I eating? And those are the things that I might get a craving for a beer. I don't drink the same beer day in day out. So in different seasons, I tend to drink darker beers in the winter, and I tend to drink lighter beers in the summer. It's just kind of a natural thing. So it's really I literally don't have a favorite beer.
There's definitely beers that you find more often in our fridge
Yeah.
than others.
Yeah, and it goes the gamut in the fridge. But I mean,
That is true.
I love Pilsner Urquell. I like actually like the Lafay Blonde. What else do we have in the
We always
fridge?
have Père Jacques from Goose Island.
Yeah, I do love the Père Jacques from Goose Island. And then once in a while we'll get Michigan breweries in here too. Russian River, sometimes we'll stock up on some of that and sit on that for a while. And like Bell's Third Coast Old Ale. Like that's a beer I get cravings for.
That is true.
So, yeah. So there's some.
Okay. Okay, so another person asked, the building's perfect. We've already sort of touched on, Grand Rapids a little bit, but
Yep.
aside from the building, what makes Grand Rapids special, and why sell in Grand Rapids rather than Ann Arbor, Traverse City, those sort of the other places you looked at?
Well, Grand Rapids. At the time, I just left New Holland, and I was actually one of my biggest motivations was just to get away from West Michigan. So that's why I really started looking at those other places. But Grand Rapids always made a lot of sense, and we knew that it was an underserved community. We thought it would do well, but our looking at other places really was more just let's try moving, let's just live somewhere else for a while. But after time, we kind of came back, and it just made a lot of sense to be here. But I think business wise, it's a great community. They get craft beer. There's so many reasons why that we get the support that we need. It's closer proximity to Chicago here in West Michigan, which is nice. It's obviously an important market for us. We get a lot of Chicago people that come up this way, which could be more difficult depending on where you locate. But I mean, there's a laundry list of reasons why Grand Rapids made sense. And once we kind of if you stand back, take emotion stuff out of it, and just look at logically, it just made logically a lot of sense. And I think what we're doing fits the fabric of Grand Rapids well too.
Okay.
We literally took a whole list of like what attributes are important to us to both live in and have a business in, and put our cities across the top and did the pluses and minuses, like very unromantic approach. But once we did that, it was like super obvious that Grand Rapids was a really good spot for us. And if you look at all the cool stuff happening here, my goodness, it's definitely a bright spot in Michigan and
Yeah.
a really cool community to be a part of because of that.
Yeah, for sure. And this building, which was perfect, happened to be Grand Rapids as well.
Yeah.
It just definitely does not hurt.
Okay, any plans to expand the Sour Funky beer production and or distribution?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where are we at capacity wise?
Yeah, capacity-wise, in our business plan, we put a strict limit on how big we wanted to grow. So we want to hit around 5,000 barrels. We think that's kind of our sweet spot, and then be done. Growing at that point, we have no desire to have multiple locations or anything like that. So we're a little over halfway there right now. So as far as actually creating more sour and funky beers, that's something that we will naturally do. And if we can figure out how to can it and do it right, then I think we'll do more of that. But it will always be on a pretty limited release, just because of the nature of the beer and the amount of time it takes and the amount of space it takes up to age it and all of that. So we definitely want to see that
Yeah.
be part of our growth into that 5,000 mark.
Yeah, so you should see more of those styles of beer. But for us, when we look at our plan, we see a lot of advantages and a lot of power of staying small rather than growing large. Lets us keep that freedom of experimentation and keep our beer, keep the art in the beer, which can sometimes be difficult to do the bigger you get. So that's something, it doesn't necessarily happen that way. Like I think Founders and Bells they're big breweries and they do a wonderful job, but there tends to be more of a single beer focus a lot of times that then it becomes just like a factory. You're just making product A over and over and over again. Where if we stay small, we keep that experimentation going. We keep doing the beers we're passionate about and give those to our customers. And that's kind of how we see staying small working for us. So,
okay. Got another question about Chris. More on your background. What did it help you learn that you can apply here, and why leave that job to come here?
So I worked at Herman Miller for I think close to 12 years. My education is in environmental sciences, which is always my intent at Herman Miller, though I really never intended to work there to begin with, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, my last 4 years there was in the Design for Environment department, which was making sure that the products met Herman Miller's very stringent environmental protocol. So that was awesome. I mean, that gave me the way we structured our sustainability program is really we can thank Herman Miller for giving it that structure in terms of recognizing you have to have goals, they have to be measurable. If you report on them on an annual basis, that transparency will only make you better and continue to improve and get other people invested in what you're doing and commenting on all of that. So my experience there was awesome. I never did intend to work for a corporation, though. I was always more the nonprofit kind of person, but life throws you curveballs and you roll with it. So as much as it was a fantastic place to work, and I missed the people there, and I felt like what I was doing was really valuable, especially in a corporate setting. I was quite happy to leave that and do something on a small scale, with Jason, and have he and I be able to run this place together the way that we want to do it. I'm a type A control freak, so I love being able to make decisions for myself and not have to worry about everyone and their brother's opinion. We do consider all our stakeholders when making decisions, of course, but it's so nice having our own place.
And we spent 5 years building this business plan together, and
we spent a lot of time on this plan.
And during that time, it's always a struggle because you just want to get your business started so quickly. But having that time to discuss what exactly we wanted to do, and more important, what we didn't want to do, was important. And I think that makes it, it fits very close to what we want. I think that maybe made it easier too, because it's both our passions.
Yes.
To make that kind of jump from a corporate job that paid well, was reliable, things like that, to kind of throw it all in the wind and just we're going to own our own business, and whatever happens. It is risky, but if you're passionate about it, like with us, it's worth it. So.
Okay. All right, I think we have 2 more questions, one user and one from me. We'll start with the user one. Well, maybe we'll end with that one because it's about beer and how to serve it and stuff. So,
okay.
Jason, how helpful is it that Chris is here, but how hard is it also to balance a relationship and parenthood with owning an interesting company?
That's a good one.
Don't have a child 9 days after opening a business.
Yeah, I would not recommend that. But but we figured out. But the challenges are a lot of times. We both are active in the company. A lot of times I'll have to run home in the middle of the day. We'll have to flip flop who watches our son, and that can create some problems. Just from a time management standpoint, things like that. But we figure it out, and like my secret is I'm very productive between the hours of 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. I get a lot of work done late at night, and that works out pretty well too. So we figured out. But
and I think something else too that you already alluded to was we did spend so much time on our business plan and really ironing out this is what we want to do, this is how we want it to be. So starting out on the same page and going through all the gory details of what that page looks like. We haven't had, I can't think of a single like argument we've had since we opened that could throw wrenches in our relationship. Financially, luckily we've been stable, and that usually is something that can get harmful. But we also
the business
really
worked.
downsized our life to make sure that if the business didn't work, we weren't gonna, lose everything and all of that. But we're both really good at being open with our communication with each other too.
Yeah, not every couple could work together.
No, and they shouldn't.
We
in
have
most cases.
we're alike and different enough in the right ways that it works out. But
Yeah.
I've seen couples that have businesses that doesn't work so well. So.
All right, perfect. And then our last user comment is, are there different temperatures you have to serve beer? Obviously there are, but different. Maybe you can expand into glasses and maybe even food pairings a little bit to finish off.
There are ideal temperatures to serve different types of beers. It's easier to do in a home setting than it is in a commercial setting. With draft systems, as we're pumping beer out of the back, there's all sorts of boring dynamics of pressure and temperature to actually get that beer to come out so it doesn't foam and things like that. So, we don't do that as much as I would like to do here temperature-wise, but the other part of that is we also do proper glassware. I guess not to skip over the temperature thing, but typically darker beers are served a little bit warmer, like 50 degrees or so, perhaps, where some other beers might be colder. So there are standard ranges that tend to pull different flavors out of the beer. And they tend to be, you go to Europe and you're not drinking warm beer. You're drinking beer that's still cool, but it's warmer than ice cold. So I think that's where Americans are used to ice cold beer. So I like to drink all my beer somewhere, in that kind of 42 degrees or so, and that's usually pretty good. But I might let my glass warm up if I want to get more of those flavors out. But the other part of that is like proper glassware. If you think of, people are familiar with wine glasses. There's a white wine glass that's shaped differently than a red wine glass. Red wine tends to be, a bigger bulb. White wine tends to be more narrow. Same type of thing with beer. Different shapes do different things for the beer. We serve our hoppy beers out of tulip glasses that are tapered at the top. It holds the head on top, which releases aromatics from the hops. If we have a more malty beer, it may be served in our chalice, which is a wide mouth beer where the aroma is not as important as more the malt character of the beer. So those types of things all play into it. So temperature, glassware, things like that all play into how the beer tastes, also how it's perceived.
How it feels in your mouth.
Yeah, does it go to the side of your mouth with a wide glass or whatever it might be? So there's all sorts of little subtleties like that. And then, not to overlook the obvious thing too, you get a beer, it looks beautiful in this beautiful glass, it leaves an impression on you that also is part of it too. Like, we always talk about, I've got beer memories of drinking Guinness in Dublin, and that was a fantastic Guinness, you know what I mean? It probably doesn't really taste any different than it does over here, but I sure remember it that it did. And it came in
creamier.
It came in a nonic glass, and it was awesome. And we hope to kind of create that same sense of place with that glassware here by serving the way they do in Belgium with unique glassware to fit that style.
Okay. One more question, I think you probably should touch on it because it's asking about expanding into other states.
We just talked about this the other day.
Yeah, right now we're just in Michigan and greater Chicagoland area.
And we're kind of waiting to see how Chicago, what kind of orders go through. But right now we have no plans to expand beyond that. But we are already talking about opening maybe one more market. So we think we still will have some capacity. So should we just throw it out there? Obviously we're looking at it's either going to be Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, and then for whatever reason, there's this New York distributor that keeps coming by and talking to us, and really, really wants our beer. And we love the restaurants in New York that get our food and beer pairing. So that's out there too. Maybe if you guys want to, let us know where we should go.
We did think about having that be a social media thing.
You guys vote.
Pick which state you want our beer in most, and then we'll choose.
I think we'll probably do one more state, potentially even by the end of this year, but maybe next year. But we're at least cautiously going into it. We don't want to go into a market that we can't support either. So it all depends on how much beer we sell to that maximum volume that we're at. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming.
All right.
Well, I came to you, but
Yeah.
thanks for doing this, and
Thanks
good
for all
luck
the
in
good
the future.
questions.
Yeah, there were a lot of good questions, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon. Thanks.